Hey College Success, this is your week 7 video for October 12th through 18th. Our class is done on Friday, October 23rd, so we are almost finished. Our semester is quickly winding up. So as a quick reminder before I hop into week 7, in the Lessons tab, by the time you watch this, week 1 will have already been reopened. I did reopen it at the end of week 6. I sent out announcements about it. It was in your week 6 video, so hopefully you took advantage of that. As a heads up, I will also be reopening week 2 on Friday, October 16th, 17th, and 18th, so you will be getting a chance to make up some points from earlier in the semester as well with week 2, so please make sure you take advantage of that, especially if you feel like your grade could greatly benefit from that. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and we're going to get into week 7. We're in chapter 6. There's only 7 chapters, so we are almost completed with the textbook as well. You can see we're going to be in chapter 6, and then you have your list of assignments. So we'll talk about those assignments, and then your final project, like normal, we'll have a separate video for it to just remind you of what it is you're doing for your final project. All right, so first I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint for this chapter. So here we are, chapter 6, mapping your path and action plans to be successful. So in this chapter, we're going to talk about creating an academic plan. So part of that means like meeting with your advisor or your mentor. So hopefully you already know who your advisor is, and if you don't, you should have it listed in a couple different places. One of the places is in your My Academic Plan area, so you want to make sure that you know how to access that. That's in your My Stuff, and is actually located in a couple different places in MySarkState. But when you get to this page, it has your advisor listed right there. So you know who your advisor is, and it'll have their email right underneath. That's one of several places you can find it. So again, that's in MySarkState, My Stuff, My Academic Plan. So if you have not made contact with your advisor yet this semester, spring 2021 classes are viewable right now, and you can start registering for them in just about a week or so. So touching base with your advisor would be a great idea at this point, especially if you are a first semester student. So knowing your advisor and then just touching base with them, making sure that you guys are on the same page and you have a path and some goals that you're going to work toward. Part of that is knowing the kind of requirements that your degree is going to call for. So sometimes when you're in a certain field, an associate degree is going to allow you to enter your field and make a nice living. Other times you might have to go back for your bachelor's degree. So it's important to know that. It's important to understand how far you may have to take your degree. And so planning for that ahead of time is helpful. And that's one of the benefits of meeting with your advisor. Also knowing your degree requirements in general, how many credits, what kind of courses do you have to take? So this is where, when you're at the SarkState homepage, and you go under academics, you can find where your general degree would fit into, and I just clicked on business. And then it takes you to a couple of pages to eventually, let me just walk you through it real quick. So you get into your general field, it's going to give you lots of information. And then toward the bottom, it's going to let you pick what field are you going into. Click on courses, and it's going to give you that PDF. And this is that plan that allows you to see all the classes you have to take, the credits. So that kind of helps you understand a little bit of your degree requirements, and that's another benefit of meeting with your advisor. Okay, so also part of this academic plan is knowing the difference and the benefits of different types of courses. So online courses, asynchronous, which is what we're doing basically, or you can log in at any time. There are due dates, but we're not all together at the same day, time, place, so to speak. Or synchronous, which is what Web 4 is where they're meeting at the same day and time, but you're online instead of in person. So you may encounter that at some point here at the college. Experiential learning is maybe an internship or service learning, and those are beneficial as well as resume builders. So you may have that opportunity depending on your field. For instance, a lot of business fields have like co-ops. Education has, student teaching. So you'll get kind of like your foot in the door, so to speak. So then our chapter transitions into discovering the power of networking. So how important it is to networking. What is networking? It's establishing those relationships with other people. That professional connection. And there's that phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, it's a little bit of both. You've got to know your stuff, but it's also important to know people because oftentimes who you know can get your foot in the door or can get you promoted. So how do you network? What do you do? It's all about who knows you and who you know. So maybe you attend a job fair, you get into an organization, you make connections here. Starting at your college career, you make those connections with your advisor, with a mentor at the campus, whatever that could be. So just making sure that you're making those connections. You can have a professional presence. Now, oftentimes when people say networking or social networking, they think social media. That's not necessarily professional networking, although you can use them to your advantage. So you can certainly have a professional presence on a social networking site, but usually you want to stick with like LinkedIn for that real professional presence, but you also should clean up your personal social media accounts, making sure that you're not having anything that's inappropriate because future employers can look at that information. And so this kind of shows, employers really do take a look and see that, it says 93% look at your social media account before they make a decision. And half of them reconsider after seeing it. So they're looking for inappropriate pictures, alcohol or drug use, lying. So how do you kind of clean that up? Well, check your privacy settings. Make sure that you're having a professional photo and email address. I can't tell you how many times I have students, their photo online is them with a substance in their hand or, their email address. This is a real email address, guys. I had a student years ago whose email address was poledancer01. Well, you might be thinking of one thing, but he was a firefighter, and so that's why he thought it was clever, but it doesn't sound very professional, right? So you want to make sure you have a professional sounding email address, make sure you have a LinkedIn, share your accomplishments. So those are all ways to kind of clean up your social media presence as well. And I have here just some examples just to kind of show you that it happens. People do get fired because of their social media use. And so there's tons of web pages like this. A waitress didn't think she was tipped well enough, so she badmouthed the customers. Well, she got fired because she was speaking poorly of people who, went to her place of work. This cheerleader drew inappropriate pictures all over. She was a New England cheerleader, and she was fired because of that inappropriate stuff she put on Facebook. There's just a whole lot of examples here. So, looking through and just make sure that you're careful. And these, of course, are people who are fired. This one is obviously not appropriate. There's quite a few. One with teachers. So this is after people have already been hired, they're fired, but the same goes for before you're hired. They can look and kind of, whether it's good or bad, judge you based on that. So just make sure you're being smart on there. Another thing that can help with job searching is to craft an elevator speech, and you'll read more about this in your chapter. It's basically like a 30-second to 1-minute speech, kind of selling yourself, like a resume would do. But it's just something that maybe if you're at a job fair or you're in an interview situation, it's something that you can just have in your proverbial back pocket. So tell me about yourself. Well, boom, you already have something ready to go. So you're not sitting there going, well, I went to school. So you're not having to think about it. You already have it kind of practiced and rehearsed. Okay, so I mentioned a couple of these already. If you don't have a strong network already, you can join clubs and organizations. You can go to events on your campus. You can volunteer. You can job shadow. So lots of ways to start building and strengthening that network. Other job search tips, again, because this is on that career component here, is, making sure your resume is ready to go, have a cover letter, look to see what your resume looks like. Does it match well? Is it going to attract the right kind of employers? So this is also just a nice kind of plug reminder for career services. They can help you with your resume. They can help you with job searching, interviewing. So make sure you utilize them as well. Even if you're early on in your career, get your resume kind of brushed up and ready. Sometimes I see resumes that have a lot of good info, but the formatting is really not appealing. And so that right there, sometimes employers only spend, 30 seconds at a resume. And if it doesn't look attractive, they may not spend a lot of time on it. So make sure that you kind of look at those tips. All right. Also, part of this chapter talks about financial planning and the importance of your finances, because this goes hand in hand with your college success. Some of you are taking out loans, grants, scholarships right now. So just making sure you know the difference between the different kinds of educational scholarships and grants and things like that, and that actually having a college degree does have a really high return on investment. You are getting a lot back for what you invest out of your career. Also, during your college years, you want to make sure that you take the time to establish good credit. So there are some tips our chapter talks about in terms of, making sure you pay on time, get a low limit credit card, and then making sure that you are budgeting. And part of this is I often have students who don't know what their credit score is. And so this is by no means required, but it might be helpful if you just go to Google and do free credit estimator. If you go to My FICO, this is free. You do not have to put in any information, no social security, nothing. You just go through and it'll ask you some very general questions. And based on your questions, it'll give you a range of what your credit score might look like. And so that's helpful to know now as well. All right, so that is basically chapter 6. That's a nice overview. And so again, whenever I do these, I really do encourage you to spend time inside the chapter, kind of looking to see how you would benefit most from. Maybe you need to look at the career section a little bit more. Maybe you need to look at the social media section, whatever the case might be. All right, so chapter 6, what are you doing this week? Well, you have another discussion forum, so hopefully by now this is commonplace, you know to expect that. So your original post will be due Wednesday for week 7 attendance, and then responded to classmates by Sunday. Everything else is due Sunday. So let's go ahead and get into your assignments. Here we go. Your chapter 6 discussion, we just spent some time talking about networking. So your prompt is share a personal example, or if you don't have a personal example, maybe it's a family member, a friend, someone in the news, about how networking can lead to career opportunities. So for instance, maybe you worked with someone and it was like a fast food job, something that you have right now or earlier, but not where you want to be in 10 years, but someone who can kind of get you a connection or your foot in the door somewhere else. And so you work really hard at your current job and it can lead you somewhere. So talk about either you or someone how they've used networking. And again, when I say networking, I'm not necessarily talking about social networks. I'm not just talking about posting on Facebook or posting on Twitter. However, I have had students say they've used those to lead to career opportunities. For instance, one semester a student was a photography major, and she used her Instagram as a way to get followers and book jobs for senior portraits, for weddings. So that is an example of how she used social media for social networking. So that's kind of how you could use that to your advantage. So talk about an example of using networking. And how can you use networking to your advantage? So it's all about networking there. So again, original response by Wednesday. All right, your chapter 6 assignment is called You Expect Me to Do What? Now, in a normal face-to-face setting, we actually do a whole activity with networking and like a speed networking experience. We don't have that obviously with our online version. So you open up this document, and this is going to talk about networking and the 3 P's, meaning prepare, practice, and pull yourself together. So I want you to read a little bit about what that means. And then it's going to give you a scenario. So down here toward the middle to bottom of page 2, you're going to read about a scenario. It has to do with networking. And here's what you're actually going to answer. What did Pradeep do, and this is the character in the scenario, in terms of how did he prepare, how did he practice, how did he pull himself together? Again, that is up here. And then it's going to ask you, how could you in a future networking or interview situation prepare practice and pull yourself together. So you can answer right on this form, or if you want, you can open up a brand new Word document. Either way, you'll go in and you'll submit, or if you want to write your submission, you can certainly just type your submission in there. So that is your Chapter 6 assignment about networking and kind of responding to that scenario. Chapter 6 quiz. I think we're to the point where we know how to do these now, right? So Chapter 6 is going to cover the concepts we just got done talking about. So please make sure that you either look at the PowerPoint or go back in. You know, I touched on service learning, but I didn't really go into depth, so you may have to go back in the text and look a little bit more about service learning. You know, make sure that you answer all the questions in full sentences. Again, we have 10 questions here. So a lot of these you'll see are two-part. What is an elevator speech? What are some tips on creating it? What is a return on investment? Is there a high return on investment in college? So make sure that you respond to both parts of a question if they ask multiple questions, and every question respond in 2 to 5 sentences so that you are getting full credit for those responses. That's your Chapter 6 quiz. And then your college resource reflection is on MyStarkState, something that hopefully you're already somewhat familiar with, but the reason I have this is because sometimes people still really do log in and go straight to that My Stuff tab. So I'm going to encourage you for your reflection to click around. You know, look in the academic, hold on, never fails. Look in the academic support tab. Take a look at the campus tab, take a look at the communications, help, you know, just kind of click around and really get to know what else is in MyStarkState. I mean, look at all this. There's a ton of information in here. So please spend some time, click around, see maybe if there's something brand new. On the home tab, they have Rave. They have a lot of different information about things going on campus. So spend some time looking around there. And your reflection is kind of just talk about what was helpful or relevant or new that you discovered as you were clicking around. So again, you're not summarizing. Please don't just summarize. In the campus tab, you will find, no, I don't need to know that. Just tell me what was helpful to you. What did you discover? What was new or relevant to you? Okay, so as a quick recap, you are posting in your original response by Wednesday for week 7 attendance about networking. By Sunday, you're responding to 2 classmates. You are also completing the You Expect Me to Do What, which is the scenario on networking and the 3 Ps, how the scenario went, as well as how you could practice, you know, prepare and pull yourself together in a networking situation. Complete your Chapter 6 quiz, and then your resource reflection on MyStarkState. Again, Week 2 will be reopening the end of week 7 on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. So I'll have the actual chapter and the video up and going so that you can access those again as needed. And then finally, your final project is due the end of week 8. Friday, October 23rd is when your final project is due. In the Lessons tab, you have a folder dedicated to your final project. There's the directions again. I've had the videos up now for a couple weeks, steps 1 and 2, steps 3 and 4, step 5, and then I'm going to open up this just overall review. And then if you are working on it and you're not ready to submit it yet, but you want some feedback, go ahead and let me know. Send it to me via Blackboard messaging or email, and I can give you some feedback and say, hey, here's what I would recommend changing or adding or whatever the case might be. So that final project is due on the 23rd. It's 30 points. So it's a fairly large assignment. If you don't do it, it definitely will impact your grade. So please reach out. Let me know what questions you have on that. All right. Hope you all have a great week. Bye.